Welcome back to more Guild Wars 2. Today we're moving on to the human starting area, Divinity's Reach. Divinity's Reach. The Kingdom of Kryta, the last bastion of the race who once ruled all of Tyria before the fall of Ascalon in Guild Wars 1. They've put up and survived a lot, humanity has. Their gods have abandoned them. Their kingdoms torn asunder. Combated on all sides by Char, centaurs, and internal strife. This is their last stronghold, Divinity's Reach. Despite being abandoned by their own deities, they've not given up. They've strengthened their resolve, and are doing their best to survive. And human architecture is very actually real-world-ish, real-world-esque. Everywhere has speed boons, and there are 6 deities, and any one of them will give you the same speed boon, just with a different name. I'd talk more about humanity, but I never actually finished any of the original Guild Wars, so I only know what little I do based on what lore they've given us in Guild Wars 2. And there's quite a lot. I'd suggest playing a human character, which most people actually have. They're the most popular race in Guild Wars 2, because they were the only race in Guild Wars 1. I mean, the architecture of this is very much medieval, real world on a grander scale. Maybe incorporating some elements of maybe early industrial era. But it's very much a very interesting looking place, but at the same time very generic, as in most fantasies will go for this type of architectural look. Whereas the other locations we've been to have been unique in their architectures. Divinity's Reach is a huge sprawling circle around the Queen's Chamber.
See that moon come through here the other day? Oh, now that's a man.
We haven't had any interactions with the Queen. She was there on the throne. We could have introduced ourselves, but that plays absolutely no interest in the story. Maybe one day we'll get to introduce ourselves to the Queen of Kryta, but not right now. Most certainly not right now. We see a lot of humanity. In fact, I did just say this is their last stronghold. They've been beat up, crushed, and many of them slaughtered. Like I said, they used to rule all of Tyria. When we get to the Char starting world, I will tell you, that's where the original Guild Wars began, and I had great sadness when I saw basically the original Guild Wars 1 starting area become what it was. Now, admittingly, the Char starting area actually looks much more impressive than Divinity's Reach, but we'll get to that when we get to the Char starting area. I mentioned that their gods have abandoned them. They literally have. The gods of humanity have fallen silent. And instead of just giving up or, losing all their faith in their deities, they've decided to keep that faith and to just keep going. To not give up their resolve, and it's a very admirable trait for any of the races in Guild Wars 2 to show. Millions have been slaughtered by the centaurs, by the Char, by the elder dragons themselves. This is the last bastion of humanity, and they do their best to keep it around, alive, and functional. Now, out of all the home districts in Guild Wars 2 that I've discovered, which is all of them, this one has the most points of interest. And it's probably because a lot of humanity is reflected here. I mean, I'm talking real-world humanity. Facts of life are displayed in here. As we'll see by a conversation coming up between a mother and one of the Seraph officers, they put a lot of work into getting this feeling like this could have existed in the real world.
I'm sorry. Please come in. I'll tell you what you need to know.
Her son is missing, and she doesn't know where he is. And it tugs at your heartstrings. The acting is solid, and pretty much this entire place feels very much like it should exist in an older style of medieval society, perhaps even early industrial age society. It gives off that vibe very, very well. And it is very much a medieval society. We're talking, it has a queen, it has nobles even, and the commoners. And when you start as a human character, you can choose to be from a noble class, or a peasant. And that plays a significant role in your human story. But enough about that, and my impressions of Divinity's Reach as it stands. Let's talk more about how Divinity's Reach is operated, is set up. As you can see, it's set up into various districts, as you would expect. I mean, humanity just tends to district itself off. There's nobles, there's not noble areas, and there's the headquarters of at least, I'm pretty sure all three of the headquarters of the three major divisions within Divinity's Reach. There's also a lot of waypoints here, more than you would expect, because it is so sprawled out. Now, there's only about 1 or 2 points of interest per section of the circle, and it's laid up in a very logical, symmetrical format, and I like it like that. Someone's OCD will not be horribly put off by Divinity's Reach, although probably its most interesting aspect is the small size of the graveyard. We passed it quite a while ago, before we entered the home district. That is their entire graveyard. I don't know how extensive their catacomb systems are, but I would suspect they'd have to be very extensive, because, as far as I know, this is actually a fairly old city, much like Ascalon was. And so it's got to have a fairly extensive catacomb system in order to contain the sheer number of dead that would have occurred since its founding. And I think that makes sense. Unfortunately, we don't get to see any of that, but we do get to see just the sheer size of the city. This probably is home to several tens of thousands of people. I mean, just by the sheer size of the city. It's one of the more expansive and more easily 100%able starting areas there is. But it's also very, very easy to get lost if you don't remember the names of the various districts. It's also very easy to miss a single point of interest or a single waypoint. As we will find out, it's very easy to actually miss waypoints. I do a very good job of trying to make sure I get every point of interest in a district. But there's only so much you can do. Just gotta go, and when you're done, when you think you're done with the map and you check and you miss something, you gotta map it out. Now, the 6 districts are named after the 6 gods. There are 6 districts in Divinity's Reach. Each one named after each of the particular gods. That's the Priory headquarters. It has quite a lot of information on it. In fact, the Centaur Wars are explained there in one of the earlier scrolls. Apparently, humanity did at one time try and make peace with the Centaurs, but the Centaurs rejected it. I'm not sure why. The scroll is, as you would expect, biased towards humanity, but apparently the Centaurs rejected their offer of peace. And that's why they've been at war with Centaurs for as long as humanity can think.
May Cormyr enlighten you.
Now, there is a time scale. I mean, they literally give you years and dates for these events. I'm not familiar enough with the lore to be able to tell you particular dates, nor did I look at it in the video, but humanity has some very interesting contraptions, like this automated band. So that must be very annoying to live next to, because it sounds like it runs 24/7. Although it's not exceptionally loud. Just continuing on and trying to get all these things. We'll be actually at the entrance point to the next area we're going to be getting to, which is Queensdale, shortly, which is the main entrance point. It's also one of the places that has extensive sewers, as we'll see shortly. The sewers are so extensive that sometimes things happen. I'm not going to spoil what happens, but this is the main drag through Divinity's Reach. It's got an upper part, it's got a lower part. We need both. Divinity's Reach is also one of the actual flatter starting headquarters for the various races. And it's rather interesting because it only has really 2 levels. Whereas the Sylvari starting zone had about a good 3. The Asura had 3. Although I must say the Char starting zone actually is also fairly flat. But it has other things going for it. The Norn starting area is literally flat. Which makes it, I guess, not the flattest. But it just feels kinda navigatable. Like this is something someone would actually live in a civilized society. And apparently the pressures of the outside world have not reached into Divinity's Reach. There's no internal panic that the Centaurs are always attacking them or the Char are still at war with them. Which is good. You want that if you're trying to, survive an onslaught of always being attacked by everything, everywhere. And I'm serious, the hatred that the Char have for humans and humans have for the Char is so deep, so inbred, that there are points where it's like, yes, I realize they're giant cat people who have literally burned your cities, tore down your civilizations. At the same time, you kicked them out of the land in the first place, and so they merely came back to take it back. And the hatred is just so deep between these two races. It's rather interesting to play a Char. I must say, you should definitely play a Char if you've not played one in Guild Wars 2. Now, I was talking about the sewers being extensive. This is what's called the Great Collapse. When I was recording this, I did not know why it existed. Why it's just this giant hole in Divinity's Reach. Apparently, the sewer system collapsed. No, I'm serious, it just collapsed. There's nothing else to say, it just collapsed. Now, fortunately, there was enough warning. There were several weeks' worth of warning, and no one was hurt. The people have been relocated, and they're working to rebuild it all. But this part of Divinity's Reach just collapsed. Yeah. It's just gone. Now, like I said, at this time I did not know this, so I'm going to be talking to some people, trying to figure out why did this happen. I'm going to guess it was some type of engineering accident. You know, someone was building something and noticed that it was starting to crack. And so they did their math and their models and discovered, oh, this entire section of the city's going to collapse.
May Cormyr enlighten you.
The other thing you'll notice about humanity is that
Intriguing.
they are probably the most religious out of the various races. Despite the fact their gods have abandoned them, they've kept their religion strong. And it's a very interesting thing. The Silvari, I think, are the only other ones who have any form of religion. And that's because the Pale Tree literally has a physical avatar that they can talk to, and it's also the source of their very existence.
Stand back.
Whereas the Kjar literally killed their own god. It was a false one that they literally killed. That was, of course, before they destroyed Ascalon. And that's probably what leads to a lot of their humanity's hatred for them.
What would you ask of me?
But that's all the waypoints, and a good chunk of the points of interest. I was just trying to figure out where they all were, where the things I was missing were. And I discovered that it was, oh, one of them was right there. And it's literally just south of this waypoint. Unfortunately, it's nearly impossible to jump these fences. Which means you have to find another way to get down. I'm going to try to jump the fence, and it won't let me. That makes me sad. Although you just have to come over here and drop down. And that's that point of interest that I missed before. Very easy to miss this one, if you're not looking for it in particular. Although we were actually down here, I didn't notice it was here. Now, to get this last point of interest, we just need to head up. And not through here, it's right behind us. Now, I was also missing a waypoint, and it just happened to be straight in front of me. We'll see you guys next time. This is Stomping Llama. Signing out.